give that just a few seconds. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live chat. I'm Rebecca Thier. There's still plenty of time to get your questions in for today's chat. Send them to DOC_questions. We have executive staff from every division with us here to answer your questions and to protect your privacy. I'm only going to read your question today. I'm not ever going to read your name. So if you ever want to go back and rewatch any of the live chats, I always post them on the front page of DocNet under Executive Director Live Chats. And as always, if you do not hear your question on today's chat, it could be that our directors need just a little bit more time on that response, but rest assured, I'm still going to ask the question. I'm just going to move the question to the next month. Good afternoon, Director Stansel. We have a lot of questions for this month and a lot of questions from last month to get to.
How are you doing?
Good. The first question is actually for you. We had a staff member who retired after 30 years with the department. I was surprised to see not one staff from executive team or headquarters came to the retirement party. I think this would be a great way to show morale. 30 years with DOC is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And one of the things that's important is that, first of all, I want to recognize whoever there was for the 30 years. I'm assuming they're not on this call because they already retired, but I think we had the opportunity to welcome them. 30 years is a long time, and that's a lot of commitment to DOC. But to address the question, a lot of times people assume that we just automatically know of these events, and we don't. So when we are informed about them, we all try to attend them. As a matter of fact, as a perfect example of that, we were in some training a couple of weeks ago, and we had an individual, Paul Klein, who retired. He had done 30 plus years in the agency as well, and we found out about it, and we actually paused our training, brought him down to the training room and recognized him by giving him coins and giving him opportunity to address the exec team. So that is something that your exec team definitely wants to be a part of. Of course, we can't make it to all of them, but if we know well enough in advance, either I or someone from the team or potentially the entire team, depending upon where it is, definitely want to be part of those celebrations, because again, 30 years is a very long time, but it doesn't just have to be 30-year retirements. It can be any amount of time. We want to make sure we recognize staff for their commitment to the department. So said all that to say this, if you let us know, we'll definitely try to be there, but if we don't know, it's hard for us to be there.
Fair enough. Let's kick off with the Office of Human Resources with Director Michelle Cottingham. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
Your first question, State Personnel Board rule indicates that pay adjustments related to system changes and step minimums should occur before cost of living or across the board increases. Based on that order, if step increases 2%, employees should first be moved to the new step minimum and then receive the 3.1% across the board pay raise. Is that correct? Can you tell us what order this is supposed to go in?
Thank you, Rebecca, for that question. So the current process follows the board rules established order. So it is correct. And the person that submitted this may be mistakenly associating the step adjustment with a different process. So it starts with step E, and that is the 3.1% cost of living increase this fiscal year. So that would happen first. And then step F is the post-increase pay adjustments. So after the 3.1 across the board pay increase is applied, your pay will be reviewed for two potential adjustments. The first one being step minimum. If your new pay is below the dollar amount for your step, based on your individual time and series, your pay will be raised to that step's dollar amount. And then the second step is classification minimum. If your new pay is below the minimum pay scale for your job classification, your pay will be raised to the classification's minimum amount. The items in steps A through D are in a different process outside of steps.
Thank you. With the step raises, is all about time and classifications. Is it possible to have our positions reevaluated, to have time and other series considered with our pay range if our job duties have changed and we're required to assist with staff shortages and being utilized in custody and control as case managers? We are utilized to reduce overtime.
So when the state of Colorado and COENS came together in the fall of 2022, the parties agreed that the new STEP program would be based on time and job series. Time and series or time and job series is defined as an employee's total completed number of years as of June 30th, occupying a position in their current job classification or classifications within a job series. Pursuant to Article 31.2 of the current partnership agreement, the parties agreed to convene a STEPS 2.0 work group in order to redesign the current STEPS system into a system that recognizes the parties' key priorities, such as total state service, employee retention and recognition, predictability, and relevant experience. And the findings of this work group will be implemented starting 7/1/2027.
Thank you. This is a popular question, or at least it was in 2025. What is the DOC's realistic long-term plan for addressing staff retention?
Great question. The department recognizes that employee retention is not merely a staffing concern, but a critical driver of organizational stability, staff morale, and operational efficiency. When employees feel valued, heard, and supported, they're more likely to remain engaged in their work and contribute meaningfully to the department's mission of public safety and rehabilitation. Retaining experienced staff also preserves institutional knowledge, reduces recruitment and training costs, and strengthens operational continuity across the facilities and divisions. And so we've implemented several things. One being the cultural assessment program, which serves as a cornerstone initiative in advancing retention and engagement across the department. By providing a structured and trusted platform for staff to share their experiences, perspectives, and recommendations, the program ensures that the employee voices are meaningfully integrated into organizational improvement efforts. Through interviews, focus groups, and other feedback mechanisms, frontline insight is elevated and translated into actionable recommendations for leadership. To complement our long-term retention plan, exit surveys play a critical role in helping the department understand the experiences and factors that influence employees' decisions to leave. Over the past 2 years, participation in exit surveys has steadily increased, reaching a completion rate of 30.47%, providing more robust and meaningful insight into trends, workplace challenges, and opportunities for improvement. By listening to the perspectives of departing staff, the department is better positioned to learn from those experiences, strengthen retention strategies, and continue growing as an organization committed to being an employer of choice. Another item we are doing as the program continues to evolve is the addition of stay surveys. Unlike exit surveys, which capture feedback when employees leave, stay surveys engage employees who remain committed to the department's work. By gathering insight to what keeps staff here, the challenges they face, and what make their roles more sustainable, stay surveys fill an important gap in the cultural assessment program, helping us better understand the why behind retention and enabling more targeted improvements that support the long-term success of the CDOC family. And if there's any additional questions on that, you can reach out to Jessica Stats. And then finally, another valuable tool in our retention strategy toolbox is the compensation policy that was introduced in October 2024. This policy adopts a compensation philosophy that recognizes and values prior experience, leading to 35% of our staff, which encompasses both new hires as well as those receiving promotions, by benefiting from the higher compensation. We continue to advocate for right-sizing compensation for the remaining staff.
Thank you. What's being done to improve the information available for those interested in career development?
Another great question. So we appreciate this critical question regarding career and professional development. We are actively working on this, having recently added HR supervisory training, first line supervisor training, increased instructor opportunities, staff learning development libraries, enhanced basic training, and updated the facility field training program, now called the Employee Development Program, with schedules available in TIS, facility calendars, or through training staff. We recognize there may be difficulty in accessing this information due to various work logistics and are planning to add details to DocNet and other forums. CTA is also exploring ways to expand opportunities. We heard your feedback in the annual survey, and this is a priority despite limited resources. We encourage utilizing free virtual training opportunities, such as the DPA SOC Learns LXP system, as a supplement to in-person training. Of course, cross-training is also an option. We welcome ideas, suggestions, and participation in development and communication. Please reach out to training staff, retention coaches, your supervisor, management, or CTA anytime, and look for the annual training survey in the upcoming months.
Thank you. What's being done to promote professional education development at DOC? If experience and education is getting overlooked in applications, what incentive do people have to stay with DOC instead of leaving and applying to places that will give them credit for their work and experience?
So CDOC values and promotes professional educational development. With our current tuition reimbursement program, employees may be eligible for up to 100% tuition reimbursement, and they can reference AR 1450-44 for more information on that program. Although education is not an allowable factor for compensation purposes, education may be used as a substitute to meet minimum qualifications for many of our positions where applicable and in accordance with DPA guidelines.
So multiple staff have mentioned concerns that their experience and background was somehow overlooked or disregarded when they applied for transfers and promotions. What's being done to make sure applicants are given a fair chance at these positions?
So every employee is eligible to apply for any position of interest. DPA sets minimum qualification standards, and the OHR team collaborates with facility leadership when posting those positions. All applications are reviewed to ensure the applicants meet the min quals, and if they do, the applications advance through the hiring process. It is the applicant's responsibility to ensure the work experience section, including work history and specific duties, of the application is complete. This section must contain all relevant work experience, as this information is used both to determine compensation and to verify that applicants meet the min quals for the position. Please note that statements such as "see resume" are not accepted in lieu of completing that section. An additional work experience will not be accepted for compensation purposes after the job posting closes. If you have a specific question, feel free to reach out to the OHR representative listed on the job announcement.
Thank you. What is the process utilized to verify a candidate's qualification when applying for DOC jobs and experience when determining pay if selected? Are previous employers contacted to confirm or verify the duties, experience, and the amount of time performing said duties?
So we addressed this previously in a live chat. Applicants are required to certify to the accuracy of all information submitted. If we discover an application includes false information, the applicant can be disqualified from the process or removed from the position if appointed and it's discovered they provide false information. Again, each application is reviewed for work experience, education, licensure, and/or other requirements listed in the job announcement. Previous and/or current employers may be contacted for verification. Work experience is determined by reviewing the work history listed on the candidate's application to include the specific duties they have listed. Transcripts are reviewed to verify related education that may be credited. Also, attached licensure and other requirements are reviewed. For other information, I would encourage people to go to the DocNet. Under human resources, there is under job application, tips and application help. Additionally, regarding compensation, compensation is calculated for selected applicants who have applied for a position that results in a promotion, classification transfer, voluntary demotion, or new hire. Salary recommendations are based first on an individual's time in series and then on related experience, either at direct credit or partial credit for the position the person applied for. Credit for experience is based on the information the applicant provided on the work history and specific duties listed, or their application that directly relates to the position they are being considered for. And for reference, you can see AR 1450-60 regarding our compensation policy.
Thank you. Following last month's response on right-sizing salaries, is there an update on the promised review of Twilight staff promoted around September 2025?
Another great question. CDOC continues to seek funding to right-size the salaries for those individuals and specific classifications. However, due to budget constraints, we have not yet received approval and do not have an estimated timeline for if or when these funds might be available. OHR and the compensation unit continue to track the impacted staff. If approval is granted, those affected will be notified regarding next steps and what to expect. We will continue to advocate for the funding needed to address these adjustments.
Thank you. Has there been any consideration to eliminating the requirement for mid-year reviews unless a corrective action is necessary?
Mid-year reviews are a component of the Performance Management Program Board Rule 6-4 B6A, and that specifically states that the department should allow for coaching and feedback throughout the performance cycle, but shall include at least one documented progress review. These reviews are valuable for establishing dedicated time for supervisors, reviewers, and staff to discuss performance, covering areas where expectations are being met and areas that may benefit from development. This process aligns with the relevant rule and AR 1450-02, underscoring the importance of providing timely coaching and feedback. The timelines in place are structured around the rating cycle and aim to provide sufficient time for completing a thorough mid-year review, which in turn supports the completion of the final evaluation in August.
Thank you. So custody and control staff are being promoted to sergeant and supervisor roles based only on minimum qualification and brief interviews, which may contribute to a "let me get back to you" culture. So are there any plans to strengthen the selection process, such as reinstating standardized testing to better ensure leadership readiness?
Thank you for this question and suggestion. CDOC opportunities are posted and filled in accordance with DPA guidelines. The recruitment planning process includes consultation with the appointing authority to determine the type of comparative analysis, which is required when there are more than 6 qualified candidates. That will be utilized to rank the candidates to establish the eligibility list and the top 6 applicants for referral to the hiring manager, which goes on to interview and final consideration. This comparative analysis step may include, but is not limited to, a suitability screening, e-skills assessment, oral assessment, written performance assessment, or it may include a review of all qualified candidates' application material and responses to any supplemental questions by a subject matter expert to assess and rank applicants. Anyone that has additional questions regarding the comparative analysis process can reach out to Tracy Reese or Jen Griebel.
Thank you. Why are new hires paid the max, but staff who have worked here for 5 or more years are not even close to being maxed out in their wages?
Again, I would reference the submitter to AR 1450-60. Compensation for selected applicants is determined based on the position they have applied for. For new hires, salary recommendations are calculated using related experience, giving either full or partial credit toward the position. Experience credit is based on the information the applicant provides regarding their work history and specific duties listed on their application that are directly relevant to the position under consideration. A new hire could be a returning DOC staff member, an individual with previous relevant experience, such as a former federal employee, or someone with extensive experience working in another state.
Why do staff receive a pay cut when transferring instead of keeping the same wages or a slight increase?
I'm sensing a trend. Again, reference to AR 1450-60 would be encouraged. Section 4F1 specifically or specifies that current state employees who transfer within the same classification will maintain their current rate of pay. This rule applies even when the move is from a different agency or department, provided the employee is moving into the identical classification.
Why is violence and sexual harassment being accepted in the workplace with no accountability?
The Department of Corrections maintains a zero tolerance policy regarding all forms of harassment. This information is shared annually through mandatory training provided by DPA as well as DOC. All relevant details are outlined in AR 1450-05. When allegations are filed against an individual, please be aware that the process involves many confidential steps. DOC does not publicly disclose all aspects of an allegations investigation. If you believe action is warranted, we request that you review the AR and submit the necessary documentation.
Thank you. Why isn't childcare assistance offered for staff?
Childcare has consistently been one of the biggest concerns, not just for the department, but for families across the country. This is why we have been working towards developing childcare programs that are affordable and that work for the type of work that our staff do. We started this journey with a partnership with Fremont County, and there is a lot of work being done to make this a sustainable space, but we could use your help. Currently, there is an early childcare certification program available through Pueblo Community College that is grant funded. There are 30 spaces available. If you have any family members that are interested in this career path, please have them reach out to the Employee Benefits Unit so they can be connected to this education and grant resource.
What is currently being done to address the amount of staff, particularly uncertified staff, that are on FMLI leave?
This is a great question for awareness. New staff are eligible at their 180-day mark, and once they have reached this mark, more often than not, they have used an excessive amount of leave to get to that point. But somehow, sorry, that's the continuation of the question. I just realized that.
So that's okay.
Do you want to read that, Rebecca?
I can, sure. Let's see. New staff are eligible at their 180-day mark, and once they have reached this mark, more often than not, they have used excessive amount of leave to get to that point, but they are still covered. Once they have approved FMLI, they use it to carry over the 1-year certification mark and then become basically untouchable, despite the fact that FMLA rules states that a staff member must physically work 100 or 1,250 hours within the previous 12 months and be a 12-month certified employee. This would mean that a staff member would need to physically work 7.81 months of the previous calendar year to be eligible.
So family is from the date of hire. However, family only offers job protected leave after 6 months of employment. Family does not require an employee to be FMLA eligible to take leave. The state of Colorado allows staff members to qualify for FMLA after a year of state service. They do not have to meet the 1,250 hours work requirement. However, all hours, including overtime, are counted towards the FMLA hours requirement where applicable. This means that all employees will reach that mark at different times of their employment. An appointing authority may extend an employee's probationary period when family leave is used. As a result, the certification date may exceed 12 months if family leave occurred during the probate period.
Thank you. Let's jump over to prison operations with our director, Mark Fairbairn. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon, Rebecca.
Due to staff shortages, you are posting case managers, teachers, maintenance, and other positions that don't normally work custody and control. What remedies do you have to come up with to solve these staffing issues? We feel burnt out, overworked, and underappreciated.
So, as we stated in previous live chats, we conducted a staffing analysis in our facilities to help us ensure that we have a correct relief factor and staffing levels that help minimize overtime in the facilities. But until we receive the funding and are able to fill these positions, it's going to be necessary for us to post support staff to assist us in that overtime mitigation, and that's both for budgetary reasons and to prevent staff burnout. I think it's important to understand that each day that a support staff works to post is one less day a custody control staff has to work a double, and in many facilities this is happening several times a week. With that being said, though, we do understand that it does have a burden on normal job duties for those support staff, and that's why each facility evaluates their staffing to ensure that we're posting that posting is done as minimal as possible.
Thank you. What is the current strategy for staff hospital watches and to reduce reliance on transport team working overtime and days off? Given concerns about the burnout, morale, and safety, has the department considered hiring temporary correctional officers as used in other facilities?
So we do have some temporary staff. Those positions, along with some of our others, are very hard to fill. Now, some of this comes back to, we have several different areas that are really highly affected by hospital watches. One, I can tell you, CTU and NTU cover a lot of hospital coverage out of the Colorado Springs and Denver areas. One, because they're helping with the private facilities, and they're also helping all those outlying facilities that have inmates that are transferred into those hospitals in that area. So with that case, it's mandatory that CTU and NTU assist after 72 hours of the private offender. And other times, again, same as posting case managers and support staff, we are trying to minimize that burden on facilities and be fiscally responsible, not having our staff drive these long distances. The prison ops also, we explore additional options such as trying to hire these staff, but like I said, it's hard to hire those positions at times.
Thank you. What is DOC doing to mitigate the refusing housing issues that the department is experiencing as a whole? These offenders are taking up vital needed space in our restrictive housing units and decreasing the space for offenders who need to be in there. Many have been doing this for years, costing taxpayers excessive transportation expenses.
So this is a huge problem taking up many of our RH beds in our facilities. So these offenders that continually refuse housing, we ask that one, and I know this is being done in a lot of places, but the facilities exhaust all their efforts to interact and speak with the inmates to try and manage them to capacity inside that facility. Look into their issues, look at other placement options, working with offender service and intel unit to try and validate issues. Some of these we may need to review for PC. Some maybe we may need to look at behavioral management plan. There is, if they do refuse housing, we can hold them accountable through the COPD process. But again, this causes its own complications with it because it typically will raise their classification level, which in turn then causes them to refuse housing and could also take up a bed where we need to place someone who has dangerous and disruptive behavior. We are looking at some different plans that have been submitted to us of some suggestions of how we could minimize this. I know a lot of people, just to address it, have talked about interstate compact, but we really try and reserve that for our most dangerous, disruptive offenders. So.
Thank you. Why can't headquarters, FMS, or management teams help out the facility staff since we all went through the same academy?
So, one, facility management teams are constantly looking at scheduling options where they can cover down where it's appropriate. I can tell you, facility management staff, when they're on a post, their phone is not going to stop. Emergencies in the facilities are not going to stop, and personnel is not going to stop. So putting them on a post may just be putting them there and taking them off, and then it just creates another vacancy. So that's one with the management staff, trying to post them down. But I can also tell you with the staff at headquarters, they're supporting all the operations, the prison operations, whether that's hiring or facility maintenance, any of those things. So every time we take somebody out of those positions to put them in a facility, one, it's going to take time to give them orientation. And then they're going to post, but every day that they're not here doing that we're losing that support of hiring staff or doing those normal job duties that support prison operations. I'll also add that there is certain rules where there's classifications of work at headquarters or work in facilities that are not allowed to cover a correctional officer vacancy just because of DPA rules and compensation. So.
Thank you. Currently, DOC beds are becoming harder and harder to come by, specifically close beds. Weekly, we're having to move close offenders who are constantly refusing housing, which in turn causes disruption with moves, custody issues, etc. What is management's plan to help alleviate these issues?
So again, I kind of talked about this in a previous answer, but our offender services unit, they work daily with facility management and case manager threes on placement of offenders. And our main job is to make sure staff are safe and the public are safe. So that's our main concerns, but then we also want to look at, are we getting the offender in the right place where they can be successful as well? But when they're refusing housing, again, this goes back to our other question. We are constantly it's an evaluation period, and OS is working with the wardens and CM3s to try and alleviate that burden to facilities as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Could the new La Vista mandate requiring the resource list staff to post twice weekly without post preference, potentially placing untrained staff alone in 82 offender housing units, be reconsidered due to safety concerns for both staff and offenders?
So, and I know this is specific to a facility, but I will tell you this is going to be with all our facilities. I know that the shift commanders and the management teams do their best to work with resource staff on giving them an available post. However, if a staff member who is working a double or a 16-hour shift has already requested that post, we are not going to pull them out of that post. So there will be times when support staff may have to work another post than what is requested, but we do our best to accommodate that.
Thank you. How is it fair for a WIG goal to require third shift staff to move another shift and lose shift differential for cross-training, especially when opportunities may not exist or some staff are meeting the requirement through regular related trainings rather than true cross-trainings?
So this question, it seems to be related back to a department of WIG associated with decreasing staff turnover. And that talks about improving through staff training or cross training. So I would ask that whoever wrote this question, please, one, either speak to their management team or reach out to either Deputy Director Lezak or Bertlow to give some additional information on this question.
Thank you. Here's another WIG question for you. How can a WIG goal affect our PMP, and how can supervisors who have not completed the same goal hold it against us if they're not doing it?
So again, this seems a very, very specific situation that I need more information on. So I would ask that, one, if they haven't already reached out to the facility management team, that they do that. And if they have or they're not comfortable, please reach out to either Deputy Director Lezak or Bertlow or myself.
Thank you. I would like to ask why parole staff are now covering down to facility posts once a week, while teacher twos who belong to the facility are not required to post at Sterling. Why is Sterling not utilizing all of their managers and employees at least once a week before utilizing outside resources?
So again, this comes back to, we're carefully review every position which can be utilized in the resource pool for overtime mitigation. And we still need to make sure, though, that DOC can meet basic business expectations. Teacher twos or admin fives, they often are monitoring Pell classes or doing other things that assist in that business need. So just know the management staff, along with prison operations, are maintaining operational oversight of these and making sure that it's, one, meeting our needs, but with the overtime mitigation plan.
Thank you. Let's switch gears for a second and talk about 1450.31. They just want some clarification on this dress code policy, specifically section 5I, where it talks about wearing a sweatshirt hoodie. What we're being told is that anything with a hood is considered a hoodie and cannot be worn as an outer garment. The AR specifically says that a sweatshirt hoodie cannot be worn as an outer garment except the uniform coat. I don't think that's the intent of anything with a hood. Can you explain that?
I can. The AR does state that you can wear a hooded sweatshirt underneath a uniform coat. And the purpose of this is to ensure that we are still maintaining the identifying badge, markers, and name tags that are required. So the answer is you can wear a hooded sweatshirt. You can wear those things. They need to meet uniform dress code as outlined, but they do need to be worn underneath a uniform jacket, and they cannot be worn over a uniform shirt without the jacket.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Our Deputy Director, Siobhan Bertlow, is our Executive Staff Liaison to our Executive Employee Council. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
Hi, I just have a question for you about our Employee Council. Can you explain why payouts for the Super Bowl haven't been paid out to the winners? It's been 4 weeks now, and our facilities winners have still not been paid. We have always been paid the next week following the Super Bowl, and no one's giving us a reason why the change.
Okay, so I can kind of answer this in that there has not been a change. The facilities must submit their earnings to the Executive Employee Council for tracking purposes related to our raffle licensing through the Secretary of State's office. Once the funds that are submitted have been verified, they're returned to the respective facility for payment to the raffle winner. All Super Bowl boards have been returned to facilities with the exception of YOS and La Vista, which should occur this week. That piece was delayed by the facility. So if you are still waiting for payment at your specific facility, I encourage you to speak with your Employee Council Chair to see what the holdup is. And if there are any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I can help identify any specific situations from there.
Thank you so much for answering that question for us.
You're
Our
welcome.
Director of Clinical Services, Lacey Monday, is here with us. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hi. I understand the initial need for the MAT program for offenders close to release. However, this program has created more drug users and seekers. Can we either prescribe it to absolutely everyone to slow the drug trade or get rid of it as a whole so there's no accountability?
Okay, so this is a loaded question, and I completely understand where this is coming from. First of all, there's a couple of ways that individuals can receive MAT. Anyone that comes into our system that is prescribed medication that is for MAT, we have to maintain them. That is a statutory requirement. So that's where the increase of MAT inmates have come from. So over the past couple of years, we've had an increase of almost 1,800 individuals that are prescribed medication for opioid use disorder. So we would love to prescribe MAT to everybody that has an OUD, which is an opioid use disorder. However, we just don't have the resources or the infrastructure to do that at this time. We're actively working on ways to get more staff into our system that would help tremendously with this. And we're starting to develop a working group to really figure out what's happening with MAT at the facility level, because this concern gets brought up frequently. And we want to make sure that we're addressing MAT appropriately. Is MAT a problem? Are we looking at all the avenues operationally to fix the problems that keep being brought to our attention? So hopefully after that working group really digs into the facility level needs, we'll have better information. And then that can also help us with requesting additional resources for this program.
Thank you so much. Our Director of Adult Parole is Keto Best. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
With the change that supervisors will no longer carry caseloads, we're wondering if you could explain the reason for them to have a state-issued vehicle. They are not out in the field or having to respond to calls.
Well, thank you for the question. In accordance with the advertised job class description and minimum qualifications dated July 1st of 2018, community parole supervisors, as defined by the Colorado Department of Personnel and Administration, Division of Human Resources, primary role involves oversight of community parole activities. Community parole supervisors assign cases to officers, monitor case management actions, resolve problems and differences of opinion on the more difficult critical cases requiring modifications of procedures, coordinate inter-unit transfers or cooperative efforts, and evaluate programs' effectiveness. The position also oversees units responsible for the community corrections program activities. For more information, please feel free to visit CDOC's website, our internal website. However, the regulations neither highlights nor should it involve supervisors carrying a caseload. Community parole supervisors should focus on coaching, mentoring, directing, auditing, which I like to say is checks and balances as opposed to using the word auditing, and routinely reviewing officers' work to ensure compliance with statutes, policies, and implementation of evidence-based practices. Although supervisors may have held caseloads in the past due to staffing shortages, I do not believe this should be permanent, and further such practice limits their ability to provide effective oversight and quality assurance, thereby helping to lower risk and/or liability for CDOC. The position is supported by standards 8.7 and 8.8 of the American Probation and Parole Standards, which specifically highlights a supervisor's role as review and approval of initial and subsequent assessments, case plans, and supervision strategies, which also involves field work with community parole officers. And supervisors should conduct regular case reviews and observe their officers in interactions with individuals on supervision, again, which also involves them not just in the office, but also field interactions in the field, examining and discussing a designated number of cases in depth. State vehicles are necessary for supervisors because their duties extend beyond office administration. Community parole supervisors are responsible for responding to after-hours incidents or emergencies involving staff and/or parolees assigned to community parole officers. Considering such, community parole supervisors should be extended the privilege of utilizing state vehicles for this service, where they assist community parole officers while in the field after hours, and that further, community parole supervisors may also oversee multiple offices or geographic areas.
Thank you. Can you explain why having a sex offender caseload is considered a privilege? Many people do not see it as a privilege. In fact, we've had several people quit because of this caseload. It would be a privilege to choose a type specialized that they're specialized in that would interest them.
So again, thank you for this question. And let me be clear, the supervision of our sex offender population is not a privilege in the sense of a preferred assignment. It is rather a specialized population which requires greater supervision activities. As such, a specialized caseload represents higher degree of accountability, responsibility, and liability. The sex offender population as a specialized caseload has been widely recognized throughout multiple community corrections jurisdictions and is supported under Standard 5.4 of the American Probation and Parole Association. The provision indicates that specialized caseloads, and when I say the provision, I'm talking about the APPA standards, indicates that specialized caseloads are commonly established for individuals sentenced for certain types of offenses like sex offenses. The standard notes how caseloads might be organized by specialized needs, including those with behavioral health diagnosis. Specialized caseloads typically feature smaller caseload sizes to enable closer supervision, targeted evidence-based practice interventions and services, specialized training, and increased collaboration with treatment providers and clinicians, all of which would reflect that of a specialized caseload such as sex offenders. Additionally, the Colorado Department of Personnel and Administration Division of Human Resources denotes that community parole team leaders are responsible for carrying a reduced caseload, which may include responsibility over offenders under the intensive supervision, fugitive investigations and apprehension, risk assessment management, or other programs. The guidance that is previously mentioned defines risk assessment management as a specialized program designed for more effective supervision of high-risk offenders, primarily sex offenders, chronically mentally ill individuals, or arsonists. As noted via the APPA standards, let alone our own HR regulations, this specialized population is typically supervised by staff carrying greater responsibility. It is unfortunate the division lost quality staff in response to them having been assigned a specialized caseload. However, when applied according to HR regulations, the alternative option would be a voluntary demotion as opposed to outright separation. Again, HR regulations align such specialized caseloads to the role of community parole team leader as opposed to that of a community parole officer. It should be noted, however, the Division of Adult Parole believes in succession planning. Considering such, the Division of Adult Parole has no concerns with interested community parole officers supervising a small number of specialized cases under certain circumstances where possible, similar to what occurs in the non-front range offices due to population and human resource limitations. This provides staff with an opportunity to learn more about specific specialized cases while preparing for future growth opportunities, acquiring unique skill sets for community supervision. Finally, please be mindful that every role within the Division of Adult Parole carries the privilege and responsibility of serving our communities. Whether supervising general population clients, specialized caseloads, conducting fugitive operations, or supporting risk assessment and case management functions, each position contributes to community safety and successful reintegration of outcomes. Caseload size and staffing configurations may vary across the state depending on human resources and regional population trends. Again, staff are encouraged to gain experience supervising diverse caseloads, which can broaden their knowledge and demonstrate competence when pursuing promotional opportunities in smaller quantities and with proper up-to-date training. And for training in this area with respect to sex offenders, you can visit dcj.colorado.gov/training for specialized training information. It is open to everyone.
Thank you, Director. Our Business Innovations Group Director, Eddie Cayley, is here with us this afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
Why are some staff who work from home and move between headquarters and facilities allowed to avoid clocking in through UKG, given the system's purpose for accountability and verifying staff work hours, regardless of their job title or convenience?
Thank you for the question. So UKG is a set of tools meant to provide flexibility to many circumstances. I encourage all areas to use the punch in and out, but I also recognize that this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Staff that spend considerable time traveling or that work off-site for hospital duty or other reasons don't always have the means to punch in and out. And I just want to remind you that With DCIS, we never had a means of collecting punches. Ultimately, it's critical that supervisors and employees are ensuring that timesheets are accurate and to sign off monthly on those entries.
Thank you. Is Gemini AI something that's going to be reaching the facilities? And what job classifications qualify to get it? Additionally, what is the process of signing up and acquiring the training for it?
So this is a great question. Google Gemini is now an approved state tool as part of the Google Workspace. Considerations for its use are made by appointing authorities who will decide who will be authorized the tool. If you're interested, work through your leadership to see whether this is an option for you.
Thank you. Last month we talked about recidivism. Is Gemini and Tableau is recidivism in addition to Gemini or Tableau, or will these replace these tools? Sorry about that.
So that's a great question. And each of these tools serve a very distinct purpose. And we're excited that all of these tools will be available for our staff to complete their duties. Also, OPA will continue to maintain a critical role in our operations, data analysis and visualizations, as well as in our annual and legislative reporting. Recidivism will bring efficiencies and centralization of information to help you in your day-to-day work duties with their tools.
Thank you. Let's jump over to Finance and Administration in our last few minutes here. Director Mitch Karstens, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There's a question here about our holiday balances. Is there a place to look up what our governor's holiday balance is? I listed a governor's holiday 8 hours for December 28th, 2025 on my timesheet. On Hermes' timesheet, that was the day listed on my regular holiday and was deducted from my holiday bank. And there were no hours added to my holiday bank for the governor's holidays. Can you talk to us about how that works?
Yeah, so these are a little bit different based on if you are still in Hermes or DCIS or in UKG. So in Hermes and DCIS, these are actually not in two separate places. That system does not allow for that to happen. So it is actually all under the holiday bucket, even governor's holidays. But if you are in UKG, they are separated out. And in UKG, you can go down to the bottom left corner under the accruals tab, and it will separate out your governor's holidays from your regular holidays.
Thank you. Will we be seeing any cost of living raise in July of 2026?
Yeah, so right now it is slated in the long bill and what the legislature is currently working on. We won't know the answer on that fully until the legislature finishes what's called the long bill, which will be probably mid to late April, is usually when the long bill finishes up. But as of right now, there is a 3.1% cost of living increase included in the long bill, but we'll see how that continues through the legislative session.
Understood. Thank you. Why is the department paying overtime out hour for hour? That's another retention incentive gone for people who work and stay here.
Yeah, so this has gone out in an email. I think we got this question last month, and I think we sent out a clarifying since then. But OT is being paid at time and a half. It will always be paid at time and a half, and it is not hour for hour. So when you see that coming through on your check, it will be at time and a half, not hour for hour.
Thank you. Why is the state not looking at ways to save money with the department instead of draining more money from our stakeholders? Areas continue to order non-necessary items into the facility when it is not needed.
Yeah, so I think on this one, anybody that has cost saving measures, I welcome and encourage them to reach out to me if somebody thinks that there is wasteful spending going on. We track those down and look at those continuously. So if that's a concern that you have, please reach out to myself. You can also submit an ideas form on DocNet. If you have a cost saving measure for the department, you can actually submit that through the ideas form. And under state statute, if it does create savings for the department, for the first year, you are actually entitled to part of those funds if you come up with a cost saving measure. So if you see any waste out there or things that shouldn't be spent on, please reach out to me or your business manager, but also submit the ideas form.
I understand the JBC did not approve the fence for Delta to become a level 2. So now what?
Yeah, so the JBC has not yet voted on the Delta fence. I know if you listened to figure setting last week, They had quite a conversation about it. It can be confusing at times, but they have not yet voted on the fence. Where it is in the process is that it has gone through CDC, which is the Capital Development Committee, and it's what we call above the line. So the line is what they fund up into. That project is currently below the line, so it is not yet funded on that project. It then goes to JBC for them to review the list and approve, and that's where JBC started to have a conversation of if it should be above the line or below the line. They will vote on that over the course of the next probably 6 weeks. Again, the priority order and what is funded on our project side will happen with the long bill, which again will happen sometimes probably mid-April to late April, and we will dispense that information as those approvals or denials come from JBC.
Appreciate you as always. Director Stansel, the last few minutes belong to you. We did not get to all of our questions this month. That's okay. We'll put them on for next month and we'll still continue to ask them. Last few minutes are yours, sir.
I have a lot, Rebecca. I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to send in questions. One thing I would like to encourage people is, if you have a question, take some time to look at previous postings. Because what we're seeing is we're getting a lot of repeat questions every month or every other month. And that kind of takes away from us getting to all of the questions. So I would encourage you to do a little research. And that's why we post them on DocNet, to make sure that, if you weren't able to see it, like Rebecca says every time, if you weren't able to be here for the live one, then you can always reference the ones that have been posted. Other than that, Rebecca, I don't have much. Thank you for all you do, and thanks to everyone else for all they do, and thank you for taking time to join these.
I echo that as well. I want to thank our entire executive team for working so hard to bring you the answers to the questions that matter most to you. And especially thank you for watching and sending in those questions. Just like Director Stansel just said, we could not do this without you. Our next edition of the live chat is Wednesday, April 15th at 11 o'clock. See you next time.